about some of my, some of my objectives. What do I see as some of the important things, in that role that I was appointed to perform. And I told the Senate at the time that one of the things we're going to focus on, we're going to see how we can work with the divine resources that they bring into the country.
Yeah.
With a agenda.
Yeah, because when these resources are now aligned, basically they store some of the projects, right?
Very true. Very true. Very true. And that's why we're laying up these so that people can understand some of the background behind where we are going, where we come from and where we're going. So So at that point, the senators were like, I said, well, align more. They said, no, you're not going to be able to get the development partners to align with the government agenda because they know what they want to do. They have their mind fixed. This is how it has happened. And I said to them, honorable, people, I can confirm to you that because I have a background working in the space of development as well, before appointed here, we will work with the development partners in a very strategic way to be able to let them get closer. So under the supervision of the Minister of Finance, who himself worked in the development space at some point with the African Development Bank, both of us kind of aligned very well on this agenda. So Minister himself, when we presented our plans to move aid in terms of making it more effective, approved that plan. So we started the process of reforming how aid is treated, how aid is looked at.
Yep.
So in that context, we in 2020, so we have started the processes. We've done a lot of consultation. By the time we got into office, we have started a lot of consultation. We have started with developing systems that will be able to track and support these things. So we had the policy ready just before COVID came in. So we could not be deterred by COVID. So in 2020, particularly in September, we launched the first ever comprehensive aid and NGO policy for Liberia. So
that was the get-go.
Yes, that was the beginning for us to test, test waters, see what is possible, see some of the implement the policy and see where some of the gaps will come. So we started the implementation immediately. Now, of course, we have started even before the policy was launched. We have started working with our partner very strategically and engaging them and making them understand the need, to come more closer to what the government agenda is, and the people of Liberia, because what the agenda of the government is to help change the situation that the people of Liberia live in. So the goal was that, look, if you are coming to help us as partners, you're doing well. You've gone to various communities, you're doing lots of other things, but because of the fact that we are not coordinating, we are not talking to each other, the partners not aligning with what the government has, even the partner not even aligning with each other, they're not talking. So we have to find a way so that we are talking with you, you are talking amongst yourself, and between you, myself, private sector, and the CSO, we are talking around the same frameworks of how we move development. Okay, so we started that process when we launched the policy. We started first with what we call the portfolio review for individual development partners. So we in 2021 and 2022 we did individual development partner portfolio review. So
those individual development partners are basically who?
Yes, so that includes, for example, the EU, bank, the African Development Bank, USAID, the government of Sweden, Ireland, all the partners we have in the space here working in Liberia. Working, of course, the UN is a big, because they got one UN with all, so many entities of UN. So the UN bodies, and most of our bilateral and multilateral partners, Germany, the UK, all of these people. So when we started effectively executing this portfolio review, there was a need. It became very clear that it was good for us to look more closely, work more closely, and do more programming closely. So about a year ago, we organized what we call our, after the first set of portfolio reviews, we organized a field visits called a high-level field visit. So we took all of the development partners to the field into Bong and Nima counties. We took them for 2 days. We went from project to project funded by them, project funded by the government. We visited these counties as the pilot case to start to see how results are being generated from these investments we are making. Okay, so at that high level, we have ambassadors representing their respective countries. We had development cooperation heads working. We had the resident coordinator for the UN represented. They were all there. All the ambassadors, almost all ambassadors, in fact, every ambassador that was in Liberia at that time when we made the trip in the field, they were in the field. We have ministers of government as well who joined our field visits, and we went to Banga, of course, Bon County, and then Nima County. Ganta was our base. So fast forward, 2022, we did a lot of review. It became very, very clear, Varflay, that there were a lot of disconnection between and amongst players. So then there was clear need for us to now plan for what we call the joint sector portfolio review. Now requires that if you are working in agriculture, you are supporting agriculture, you finances for agriculture, you will be in your sector, that is the agriculture sector, and work with the Ministry of Agriculture for the ministry and you and all other players, including civil society and private sector, that are working in that sector to look at what has happened in that sector. What are some of the challenges the sector has been facing, along with in the deployment of resources, to also look at who are those that should have been participating in the private that may not have been considered doing those sector works. Then along those processes, we were also intending that when we plan, we're also intending that during the review, we will be able to see clearly some of the feasible timelines that are applicable to these program developments. Okay.
Okay.
So we had the sectors. We started with a one-day program, or a one-day opening program, which was meant to run us through the different angles. So there were one on coordination, a panel discussion on coordination. There was one on alignment. There was one on results, and then there was one on mutual accountability. Okay. These 4 pillars are pillars that we agreed on when we came from the high-level field visits 1 year ago.
Okay. So, but just before you move forward, how the impression from these partners after the field visit?
Oh, the impression was overwhelming. They were so excited. They were like, "Look, Minister Flomo and the team from the Ministry of Finance, we are extremely excited because this is the first time." A lot of them confirmed that this was the first time, even in their diplomatic work they've done across other countries in Africa, this was the first time for them to participate in this kind of high-level field visit with government ministers and themselves going into the field, interacting with projects jointly, looking at those, identifying some of the issues, picking up things that you will probably, particular project should have considered that were not considered. So that's why led out to the action dialogue. So when we came back from the field, we had a one-day action dialogue. Immediately, all of that action dialogue came out with these four concentrating areas that I just named. Yeah. Looking at coordination as the center, using country system. There was issue about, alignment, then results, then mutual accountability.
Yeah, accountability.
So these 4 pillars now became the coordination in Liberia. So over the period now, as we have been talking with partners, working with them, planning, looking for resources, identifying resources, trying to align, we have been anchoring our conversation on these 4 pillars. So when we did the plan and during the opening ceremony, we had to expand the discussion around the understanding of these 4 pillars, so that people understand and provide more deep dives into what do we understand about coordination. What are the issues with coordination?
Yeah.
Why is it that the development partners will decide not to use, the country system? What could be the problem, the major issue that are preventing them? Because in other countries, example for Rwanda, or in Kenya, they're using country system to channel development support, and they're trying. As you all see, we all see the results. The results are getting, very visible in these countries in terms of fast tracking and moving developments.
Yeah.
So
because the country system is the existing system of the government of the day, because they know what they want.
That's correct. And of course, we all know these systems are anchored on international practices, because with the PFM law, which was passed in 2009, was of course provided in terms of support, technical support. Technical support was provided by the international experts that worked with the previous government to lay out these things. So with the law addressing financial management issues, addressing reporting issues, addressing budgetary issues, addressing economic issues, all of these things being addressed, why not able to use the country system still? So these are conversations we're having. And then we'll talk about results. So if you are planning a project, you can plan a project in the absence of your sector ministry. So for example, you're talking agriculture. You want to help to produce food in Liberia, but the sector head is the Ministry of Agriculture. How come you will come with a project and the Ministry of Agriculture does not know that you are working in the agricultural space? When the ministry is calculating or they are planning on production, they do not factor you in the plan because they do not know about your intervention in that space.
Yeah.
So so there were a lot of gaps, and we all development partners and the government realize that yes, these gaps are causing a lot of wastage. They are causing a situation where there will be duplication of investments in same area. A lot of resources, resources going into certain places without still the results coming, because we are not monitoring together, we are not planning together, the implementation is challenged. So these things were the center of the joint portfolio review.
Okay.
So during the conversation, all sectors, of government, we have 11 budget sector of the government of Liberia in terms of how we do our budgeting. We merge these different sectors based on the alignment in the national budget, and we had them sitting on a day-by-day basis, and we went through all of them. That was the health sector, agriculture sector, infrastructure. We have rule of law, security. We have governance and the transparency issues. We have health. All the sectors. It was very productive. The discussions were very rich. As we facilitated this discussion, our point was that, look, this is an open space. This government has nothing to hide. And our two development partners have nothing to hide. We have come here to build a front for improving development cooperation in the future. So, as we go ahead. So what is important is for us to be frank, for us to say what we think is preventing setting results or setting a program structure or setting alignment frameworks. We want you to say what you believe is hindering these kind of things. So the discussion was very rich. We had civil society, we had development partners that working in those sectors, and government entities working in those sectors in the room. The private sector was invited. We had them on the first day. They came. Unfortunately, they dropped off the discussion for almost about 6 or 7 days. They came on the last day, for us to close. But it was rich discussion.
Okay.
And these discussions now has set the tone. These discussions have set the tone for how we move into the future with what we call development cooperation. So one of the goals we had when we're planning this is to also move from what we call aid management into development cooperation, because the global agenda of what we call Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation, which adopted a lot of declarations, the Busan Agenda, the Paris Accord, the Accra Accord. I mean, all of these accords that were made, highlight these pillars of transparency, mutual transparency, use of country system, tracking and working results together, these things. So we have now in the planning cycle now want to move into more effective development cooperation. In this angle of development cooperation, the government is the lead. You have the development partner in that space, CSOs in the space, and then you have the private sector in the space. So these four parties have to be on the table to talk about how we see development in Liberia. People need to understand that development is not only the responsibility of the government.
Okay, so when you Minister. So when you say the four people, the government, the development partners, the CSO, and all that, in that space, it means that when you say government, for example, you're talking about the Ministry of Agriculture on a specific project that has to do with agriculture. When you talk about health, so the government is represented in that space by the Ministry of Agriculture or Health.
Yes. So the government will be represented by the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Agriculture if you are dealing with that sector.
Okay.
And then if you're dealing with security, of course, and rule of law, it will be the Ministry of Justice.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, or what we call the Office of the Chief Justice.
Yeah.
I mean, they will be representing that bill. So they will be led by that sector, and we expect that every player working in that space, in this case now development partner, CSO in that space, and of course private sector in that space should be around the discussion, should be on the table.
Are these four pillars, coordination, alignment, mutual accountability, are they in motion now as we speak?
Yes, Varflay. They are in motion, but they need to be improved because there's been a lot we have done over the last 3 to 5 years because of all, because of the work we've been doing. So we started with the reform on the policy, which I gave you the historical background on, and then we have started with physical coordination. A lot have been happening in that space, and then this joint sectoral review now has given us enough look at how the frameworks, what should be happening, who should be there, what time framing. All of these things came out of the joint portfolio review. All of this portfolio review now say that all sector by sector, they all recognize that there's a need for us as a team, because we're working in the interest of the country. We're working in the interest of the country as a team, that we have to do things to do what is best for Liberia with development planning and in-country approach and processes should be led by the government.
Yeah.
And then government resources come on the table and then executed by stakeholders who are leading those processes, along with players, private sector playing their role, civil society playing their role, and then so that we can be able to see strong development, leapfrogging our development in Liberia. This is so important, Varflay, because if we don't do these, the resources that are available in the development space, most of it will be wasted, I would say, because there's been a lot of resources coming. Though global aid numbers are dropping, but there's been what has been coming to Liberia is still significant. I mean, what has been committed to Liberia. The challenge we have had is that some of it have achieved great results, but also it is important like all of us recognized during the portfolio review, to also note that we would have probably achieved more results if we were all very strategic and working from the same table.
Minister, is it possible for this aid coordination process anchored on the country's system, the government being the lead now in directing where aid goes? Is it possible for this for this aid coordination to be something that would not be subject to change anytime soon, even after this government's 12 years, another government comes? It'll be very difficult, because the bottom line is this is very significant. It is fast tracking. I mean, when it comes to development.
That's right. That's right. So that's why we have now the outcome out of this document is out of the setting of the portfolio review. Potentially two major things that are expected to come out, and I always like to add the other component which we need to talk about, which would be the coordination framework, but which is
even if it's passed by law,
Yeah. So the first thing that comes out of here, Varflay, is the revision. We are going to revise what we call our aid and NGO policy now to what we call the Development Cooperation Policy of Liberia. Out of that Development Cooperation Policy, what we are intending, and as it came out very clearly in that framework, we have to be able to clearly identify a mechanism of strong coordination that binds all parties to that framework, that coordination framework. Some of the discussions that came out, some of the proposals that came on the field was that why don't we look at the framework that existed before with the concept of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs before, but that's going to cause additional costs. So there are also conversations that also came around the table to say, look into the framework of the Ministry of Finance legal structure. Probably there may be a need to do some internal structuring at the Ministry of Finance to ensure that legally, if it is in the PFM law that talks about coordination and aid alignment, somewhere in the law that will compel or require that all of us who are working in the space will be guided by some guiding principles, legally binding, either on the PFM law or under the PFM figure. So
no, but even if it goes to to the angle of being legislated, that's what I'm talking about. Because you don't want this particular aid coordination system be so subject to any kind of changes.
Yeah, that's true. But again, this is the reason why now we're working with all the stakeholders. So all of us out of the outcome document clearly agree that we need a stronger development operation framework. We strongly agree on that. And in that framework, center on that framework is coordination. Center in that framework is coordination. So once we have started, the final document that is going to confirm how that development cooperation is enforced will be determined by all the parties. I hope, based on your recommendation, I will think that this could be some considerations to look at in terms of what makes it binding, so that people don't do things at will. Today,
because it's still vulnerable.
Today we are there and working with the partners and trying to enforce this under the leadership of the Minister of Finance. We're working on these better relationship. The president have a better relationship with the development space, with the globe. We are leading the technical team to put these together and make it work. Now, when the president completes his second term, which will be coming very soon, once he completes his second term, there's going to be a new team that will come. Do we want to go back to the floor?
Yeah,
my answer
it will be a waste of your time and resources if this is vulnerable.
Yeah, so this is where we have gone, because what we have even done is that we have included into this plan what we call the Liberia Project Dashboard, which captures government of Liberia projects and the development partner project, tracking everyone at the same time, and it's an open source document. It's open, it's online. Anyone can go there and see, and we'll see what happened in energy, what happened in agriculture, what happened in health, what disbursement went there, and the investment is online. Just go to Google and type Liberia Project Dashboard. You have access to the information. So we are doing all of these reforms and we need to sustain them. I agree with you. That came very clear in the portfolio review. The second outcome that is going to be that came out of this meeting is we have also launched at that meeting what we call the drivers for inclusive and sustainable development studies. Because, every economic plan and execution of the plan has to be led by, significant data, informed by data. We've been collecting these data on the PAPD performance, right? We have them. Now, we are running towards also the finish line of the SDGs. 7 years from now, which will be closing down. What will happen in terms of Liberia or what Liberia needs to do to get her to the finish line so that we are able to report on the SDGs, but also reporting on our own national progress that we've made that makes significant impact on all of these development initiatives that the president is championing across the country. How do we keep them? So the second outcome out of that is that the raw data out of all these sectorial discussions is going to be used as what we call a reference document or a table document, what you call the DEX research document, or what you call the sector scan document. They're going to use that information now to go and do more deep dive into these studies that we have commissioned called Drivers for Inclusive and Sustainable Development in Liberia. So that study is already being launched. Our technical team from the Ministry of Finance and other development partners as well, because this is a joint effort. Remember now, we are to you, we won, and this is what I want to say to you. We left from the meeting with a slogan called one plan, okay? One plan, one implementation, one result tracking, and one reporting. So that is the slogan we came from the portfolio review with. So what that means is that even the drivers for development studies that we told it should be inclusive, civil society, government of Liberia, development partners, private sector, all of these players, of course, including the citizens themselves, who are the direct beneficiary of any development that will happen in the country. When these things happen, Liberia will benefit. Liberia development will be enhanced or fast-tracked. So we are working, going forward with these results out of the portfolio review. As we speak now, the teams are working on those data, on those information. And we are hoping that the use of country system, which we are also working with the World Bank to support us in terms of studying what's happening in Rwanda, how Rwanda factor or structure that development cooperation framework that is working so well. We have to learn from our friends. Peer review. That's how you lead from. Go and see what better they're doing, what good things they're doing, and you copy. So when we started the aid formulation, I sent a couple of our team to Rwanda. They had the first view and first lens of studies, and they came back and said, "Oh, Minister, the idea you have presented is what the people are studying over there, but we need to go a little bit deeper and deeper." So we've been on the exercises, and now we are in the point where we think we are more, closer to better and stronger results. So we have to now go back and now see how do we enforce the use of country system, using the partners, using the development, the government, using the civil society, using the private sector model. How do we do that? We're going to do all of these studies, and we'll be able to ensure that we have a sustainable framework that supports Liberia fast-track development that the president is leading.
So I was earlier asking if these changes, the aid coordination and all that you've discussed in your meetings from the very beginning now, I was asking if they are in motion, if they are actually taking place. So, for example, if a project under UNDP is talking about the rule of law, right now, will you include the Ministry of Justice? As the sector lead.
Yes, we have said to them. In fact, before we had this meeting last year, we issued a circular. We issued a circular to all of the development partners to say we are having a program in a sector. That program has to be led by the technical leadership, has to be with the sector. And the Ministry of Finance, that is the resource mobilizer, meaning working with you, coordinating to find the resources, have to be on the table. You, the development partner, have to be on the table. If you are using an NGO to implement as the best modality, as an option for now, that NGO has to be on the table, and all the parties have to sit down here, agree on the activity,
on the model,
agree on how it's going to be implemented before that project gets off the table and approved. So we have started enforcing that already. We've been working with the partner, and I'm telling you, the partner are very cooperative. They've been supporting this government. They are very, very dedicated, committed to Liberia. They want to see progress, so they're working with us. What they have been pleased about is the leadership that the government continues to provide in this direction to ensure that we are bringing tangible results to the people. So I have no doubts. I have no doubt that these initiatives that have started since 2-3 years ago in terms of the launch of our policy, now we are implementing the policy and we're picking up all of these situations or action or gaps that we have done. And you are implementing the policy, you are able to see whether the policy as you structure it, was 100%, or was 90%, or was 60%. You will see the standard. You can be able to reevaluate the policy. So that's what we've done in the execution of the aid policy. Now is glaring that we have to do what we call development cooperation policy, which now includes everyone on the table with clear rule defined, with procedures and processes that everyone will have to follow when you're developing a program from conception into project designing, into implementation, or the planning itself into implementation, and then the result monitoring and the whole accountability space in that place. So government is accountable, and this is the interesting thing. I always like to say this before I turn to you, Varflay. Government is doing a lot of accountable things. For example, what we do is that our fiscal number is reported to the IMF every week. Every action that we do, because this is how we show responsibility, because there's nothing to hide, right?
Yep.
This is how we show how transparent the government intends to be. This is how we show responsible leadership. So every week we submit the government fiscal report to the IMF and of course the World Bank as well, because these are the global financial sector leads, right? Global financial sector leads. They are the giants in that space. So when you talk about international financial practice, you want to talk to the IMF. You want to talk about macro stability issues, you want to talk to IMF. So they under the program that Liberia has, as part of what the government has agreed to do, is to report to them on a weekly basis our fiscal numbers. So that's why when you see the IMF the way they report, and they talk about how the government is making progress because they see the numbers. And most of the time, people get carried away by propaganda to say, there's corruption. Yeah, you can have individuals, who decide to do what they want to do as an individual. I mean, the law will find them. But in terms of the government as a system, there are a lot of things that are happening, and these have been some of the concerns of the partners about transparency, accountability. To say, look, if you can reduce corruption, we can bring our money on budget, so they can be able to implement on the budget directly. Use the money we gave you to run the budget decision, so that we don't have to hire another organization to come and implement. But when there's no transparency in that space, then there's no comfort. The people feel kind of indifference to be able to bring that money on the table. So this is what we have done. We have been able as a government to improve this space, and the improvement is it's not 100% yet. Let me understand that. This is why we are working to keep improving on it. And the sector portfolio review, we just had the very first joint sectoral portfolio review ever in the country. Was what we just did over the period of 10 days last week.
Okay, a few more thoughts. I think we will try to interact with our listeners, but let's just inform them that you're listening to the Economic Hour on ELBC Radio. This program is sponsored by the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. And guest this morning is Deputy Minister for Economic Management at the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, Augustus Jonathan Flomo, who's talking to me by way of phone. Just two other thoughts. I was concerned about internal or external or scrutiny of performances. Would there be, you people would make reports on how on performances if the Justice Ministry or the Agriculture Ministry, that's the leading agriculture sector, not performing well? Will there be a report on, individual performances as well as the donor partner if they are not performing in certain area? Will you scrutinize each other? And another thing, in the next, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years from now, what is your projection? How do you see this new policy making impact development wise?
Thank you, Varflay. So quickly, yes, performance monitoring is going to be key to this. So that's why I just started with the fact that we are working with the World Bank to support us on this new modality. We're trying to channel aid implementation through government entities so that the technical teams, the technical people, the head of policy at that ministry and agency take responsibility of what resources are, that's been deployed there, and then that they will use the capacity within those agencies to build. So we're working on working with the World Bank to develop this use of control system. This is all part of the whole, because as you do these things, you have to now focus on staff capacity. You have to focus on performance. You have to be sure that people have technical skills and knowledge in the area. They have to match up with their counterpart, development partner. For example, you at the particular ministry or agency, it will not be the business as usual where the person doesn't know anything about project planning, program design, implementation, execution, results tracking, monitoring. Then you take and put it in the head of the program. No, it's not going to be the case because they have to match with the counterpart development partner or the counterpart private sector or the counterpart civil society. So it has to be about performance, delivery, and finding results and delivering results on time. So yes, certainly in terms of how we see this coming, yes, the results are going to come very, very, very quickly, as I said to you earlier, that we're going to get better results because we all be on the same table. We all will say, look, let's fix the road. Let's fix the road from Grand Bassa to River, to River Cess. Let's fix that road. How much it costs? We all sit down and say, this is what it costs. Okay, government, you bring this. Okay, we development partner, we have money in road construction. This is what we're going to do. I'm just giving a classic example. That is what we want to be able to do. And that's why we finished with a slogan, one plan, one implementation, one result, one reporting.
Okay, Minister, just before we go, it's not mainly, in your domain, but you want to sabotage this, for example, you following the exchange rate, right? And I think that the Central Bank of Liberia and the Ministry of Finance, your ministry and other the Commerce Ministry, they are looking at it. The exchange rate is skyrocketing, and I listened to an economist, Samuel Jackson, who says that this is due to inflationary, external inflationary forces. Right. Just brush on what's happening with the exchange rate.
Yeah, very quick. I hope tomorrow, I think you have the Central Bank people on the radio. Let it talk more about that. But there's normally the exchange is supported by country productivity. Okay, so based on what you're doing, that bring you foreign currency and so on and so forth. All of these help. All of these help to do. But more than that, Liberia, I've been an import dependent country. So when you start having prices where you have to be continuously under pressure of going out there for external supplies, and in the context of that, prices are increasing on the global market and all of that. All of these factors will eventually affect your exchange rate, and more besides, there's a whole perception issue as well. Some of the people are unilaterally increasing rates, and because the people, as you go towards elections, people want to go for foreign currency. They want to keep it in the house. There's a whole perception. You can give you the statistics, but which we don't have much time now to do. But if you look at the rate of change, if you look at the rate of change between 2016, 2017, as we're going to elections, and look at the rate of change in the exchange rate between 2022 and 2023, I will count the elections. Still, this year, 2022 and 2023, the percentage of change is extremely low as compared to what it was 2016 to 2017, the percentage of change in that. So, yeah, these things happen when people are coming, when you have a whole issue about global uncertainties, challenges in the space. Of course, our economy is relying on more importation. We have less time, less productive yet, because we come from a country that have been mostly donor driven for many years, and it's now we are building the foundational issues to make sure that we don't have false GDP, false economic growth projection. That we are really relying on our own productive capacity that are able to give us the value that represent a fair GDP value, as a country. So we're working in these spaces. But I'm sure tomorrow our whole CBS team will be on the radio. They can discuss the whole detail with you, because I'm sure they have all the details. Yeah. Of course, we're already almost close to closing.
Yeah, and I think we'll also make effort to host them on this program probably next week or so. But let's see if we can interact with a few of our listeners. Call us on 080-514-096 if you have some concerns. 080-514-096. You're listening to the Economic Hour right here on ELBC Radio. Let's hear from this person. Call us on 080-514-096. Good morning.
Good morning. Is this Alfred?
Yeah, this is Varflay. This is the Economic Hour.
Varflay, good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to commend the minister and the team at the Ministry of Finance. I'm one of those that believes that there was a need to synergize our development to make sure that we have a collaborative effort to implement those programs and projects that were coming from our partners. But there is a downward effect, especially when it comes to unemployment. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the issue of nationalizing these kind of programs, cooperative programs. What happens is that a lot of NGOs employ a lot of Liberians as well. I want to know whether the minister is keen to ensuring that the expertise of these Liberians that are with the development partners are transitioned into the government space, so that those Liberians that have been working along with these NGOs will be able to get job opportunities. Okay. Because if you're taking the entire development to be nationalized, what happens to those Liberians that were working within the NGO sector? Yeah, I want the minister to please throw a light on that.
Okay, thank you so much. Morning. Good morning. Hello.
Hello. Good morning, Bobby.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, this is Activate Market Render, and I do join you this morning from CEO, the biggest intellectual platform. Let me say good morning to the economic team in studio on ERPC and be relay on radio media. However, I must agree with some of those analyses that in fact they are offered this morning on a show. But let me bring it down to the layman understanding or to my own understanding in Chamberlain, in Buto, in Spain, in Coventry.
Randa, you have to be snappy now because we don't have time.
Coming out, how they understand the economy to be. The Oma in Chamberlain, Buto, understand the economy to be when they carry $400 to the market and then they coming back with the rest, pepper store, cheese, and coal. They will say to you how the economy is doing well. Mind you, I believe in my mind, the government will do very much more in making sure that in fact the brother issue can be resolved.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to activate my career.
Thank you, Magdalene. Call us on. We can take one more call and we'll go back to the minister. Let's hear from this person. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. 30 seconds, please.
This is James A.B. Brown, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
Yes, I just want to commend the minister, especially for the new direction the government is taking in terms of having a one program for the country. But one thing I want to advise here is that, when the government took over, they brought in a lot of people in government. The issue is they are not being able to harness those skills or to set up a program within those institutions
3 manpower that were brought in government. Most of the people in government say now there are a few people working.
Okay.
Few people are working, and you have the NGOs moving around in the community. Sometimes they just go and touch.
Okay.
And,
okay. Yeah.
Let the government need to look at that.
Okay. Let the minister address your concerns, please. Mr. Flomo, I guess you followed the concerns.
Yes, I did. So quickly, for the job issue, say if you're implementing through budget, that's why we're saying we're bringing private sector, CSO, they're all going to be on the table. And if everyone on the table, the government is going to be playing their continuous role as a policy. The technical team that need to be providing support will provide support. And where implementation require private sector to do implementation, private sector will take that role and perform it. Where an NGO needs to do it, NGO will take that role and do it. So there should be no fear of, in fact, one of the things we are encouraging is for us to bring, that's why we're bringing everybody on the same table, sitting in the same room, so that we use the NGO with the right skills set and to do implementation, especially domestic NGOs eventually when the capacities are stronger. I think
the skills of Liberians, right?
Yeah, the skills of Liberia. We want to use Liberian skills because it's better to use Liberian skills so that the knowledge remains, the sustainability of the programs, and these people can live on and on and on because they are here in the system. So, yes, we are considering all of these in the framework of the discussion, and how they will work, how the framework will be implemented, will be captured in these discussions. In terms of lots of people with capacity or maybe not performing, this is why we are moving more into performance discussion, into performance evaluation, performance assessment. You know, the reform with the civil service now requires that you can't just get on payroll without a performance appraiser, or you can't be promoted without a performance appraiser. So a lot of reforms are happening, and these things are building the system so that the system will be more sustainable after government.
Okay, Mr. Flomo, thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you, Varflay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, he's the Deputy Finance Minister for Economic Management, Augustus Flomo. He's been my guest this morning on Economic Hour. This is how we draw the curtains on this presentation of the Economic Hour. It's brought to you by the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. My name is Varflay Kamara. Join the team next week for another presentation. Bye-bye.